Today is a significant landmark day in Banyana Banyana's official build-up to the FIFA Women's World Cup. South Africa's final 23-member squad has finally been revealed ahead of the tournament taking place all the way in Australia and New Zealand. Well, the squad didn't have to go that far to hear who has made the final cut, and of course a big gala event featuring the likes of the new sports minister Zizi, Kodwa, of course Safa President Jordaan, but it's the women of the hour that we want to focus on. And speaking of which, we cross now live to the capital where eNCA Hloni Mtimkulu is standing by. Any surprises on your side, Hloni? And we do know that you've got a very important guest with you, whose brain you can pick just to find out what she was thinking about in putting her final squad together.
Yeah, Marcel, in terms of any surprises, I will leave it to our guest that I will be speaking to shortly. But just to say, in exactly a month's time, South Africa will open their World Cup campaign, a match against Sweden in New Zealand. And that should be exciting times for South Africa as they make their second World Cup appearance. We know, of course, that their debut was in 2019. France, all the way back then. Things have changed so much for the team since then. They go into this year's tournament as African champions for the first time. A very big deal. We remember just about a year ago when they did win that tournament in Morocco. As I said, I've got someone who will explain all about the 23-player squad, Coach Desiree Ellis. Firstly, you know, when I look at the squad from last year, there are a number of changes in terms of who you've gone to, the personnel that you've gone for. I was speaking to Figile, she's a newbie in the team. Someone like Diseto's back in the team. Just tell us about that mix. You haven't gone with last year's players necessarily.
Look, we spoke about players raising their levels. We spoke about where we're going to. It's a completely different level. And we spoke about players putting up performances to get selected. It was very tight with the selection. I was very tough with the selection. But we've got so much depth now and so much quality. I think that will really hold us in good stead. You know, players have gotten better. Players have raised their hands. We looked at league football, players have really stood up, and then they needed to come and show it. And all we asked for them was to put up the performance, but also show consistency. And the squad is based on players raising their hands. But as I said, you know, there's some positions that's getting harder and harder to select at because there's so many good players. And if you stand up, I have to give you that opportunity.
You have talked a lot about standing up and players putting their hands up. We've seen a number of players that were clubless coming back into the camp with the national team set up once they did get clubs. Just how important was that for you to select players that were with clubs?
Look, it is very important. When a player is not with a club, they are regularly training. But getting the match day performances and the match day training and training with the team is really, really important. And we urge them, you know, to get clubs because we can then re-look at them again. And we're always going to re-look at them, not only them, players that are now with clubs, but also players that have picked up injuries. You know, we need to have a re-look and see, you know, what they can add to the team. So we always leave the door open to make sure that we give everyone a chance that, you know, that's come in, that's been injured, or those that were not around because they were clubless. The minute Ramalepi started playing, we had a look at her. The minute Lumvula Kolosa started playing, we had a look at them. Because we know the quality that they bring, but now they need to come back and show us that quality.
Just back to the surprises. In every one of the positions, there seem to be surprises. From the goalkeepers, they're a bit of a surprise there, especially the midfielders and even the forwards. Just talk to us about some of the surprises.
I don't think it's a surprise. I think, you know, players have really worked hard this week. You could see, you know, raising their levels. And as I said, you know, it's been very tight in some of the selections because in some of the positions it's becoming harder and harder. And you've got to give me that little extra. You've got to have that edge, you know. And some players had that little bit of edge, you know. But as I said, it's been very tight. I left it until the very last minute, you know, to select the squad because I wanted to make sure, you know, that I have good balance. I wanted to make sure that I have a lot of multifunctional. I wanted to make sure that I had cover in every position. But also now I've got a lot of depth compared to 2019. A lot of more depth when you look at, you know, the players that are there and the players that could come in. I think that has really, really helped me in making my selection.
Obviously now there's the added thinking around the 2027 Women's World Cup and bidding for that. How important is it for the team to do well, not just South Africa, but the other three African teams as well?
I think it's important, you know, that we do well, you know, also to give momentum to our bid. But I think us playing at the World Cup, I'm not sure if it has anything to do with the bid, but we got to make sure that we do really well. The same with the other African countries. They all have their own ambitions. They all have selected their squads. And now it's up to us, to raise the flag of the continent. But all we worried about is South Africa, of course, to make sure that we put up a good performance, to make sure, that we really do well and try and get out of the group stages. As tough as the group is, if we're going there just to go there, then, we feel that we can compete. We feel that we have the quality. And we know how tough the group is. The same as all the other teams, not just in our group, but in the other groups, will all have the similar ambition. And we're no different. But nonetheless, it's not going to be easy. But I know this group of players, along with the staff, have been amazing. And they can do more amazing things. And hopefully it will all come together at the World Cup.
Maybe just finally, you've handed a number of World Cup debuts to players, and we spoke to some of them now. It's very life-changing for them, and players that weren't even in the women's AFCON squad from last year. Talk to us about that and the impact that has on them just going into such a big occasion.
I think a lot of them have raised their levels. The only new cap, completely new, is Wendy, and she's been flying in the league. You look at Fikile Magama, played at the last Safa, did extremely well. Not many players can keep Barbara Banda quiet, and she did. The sets has come back. Gabriela Salgado, who was injured for the AFCON, has also come back. Novula wasn't at the last World Cup. Robin wasn't at the last World Cup. But these players that have been playing for the national team for a while now, but they all needed to raise their levels to make sure that they get into the squad. And I can say that they've worked really hard this past 2 weeks. The whole group, 36. It was really tough, but unfortunately I had to make those tough decisions. And now that we've selected the squad, we will continue with our preparation.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll leave it there because you have just exactly a month until that first match that you do play against Sweden. Back to you, Marcel.